And back to your analogy about the mountain, I think right now, and this is what I said to my friend, I said, your financial advisor is going to be indispensable to you, not just because of what we're heading into, what we've been through, but your needs are going to become so much more complex. Your kids are older, you've got aging parents. Right now, I want you to focus on what your advisor is worth to you, not what he costs, okay? Because you've had some incredible lift. Don't take that for granted. And I see a bit of complacency, I guess you could say, between 08 and 2021. But the best advisors, I think, is they also had a little bit more mileage to mature. They view this as a calling. And I think sometimes they're taken aback at how much impact and relevance they can have on a family. And you shared with me a story about a financial professional who had a client going through a pretty serious personal episode. And it was profound. First of all, it confirmed, right? Facts tell, stories sell. It was such an incredible story, but also just about the calling of the financial professional. If you don't mind, I'd love for you to share that story.
Yeah, it was a really revealing one again. And like you said, back to that climbing analogy, they look forward and anticipate the mountains because they've trained for them. Advisors that put processes in place early on prior to the pandemic, they really put distance between them and everybody else because they had done what we had suggested all along. There's two types of pain that everyone experienced in the last 18 months. You either experience the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Now, we can look back and say, boy, it'd have been nice if I had my practice a little better positioned for uncertainty. But whether you did or not, it's not too late. The discipline to act, to put these things in place, will really separate you. And those clients that need you will find you. And this story that you're talking about, this was just a couple of weeks ago. And it was an interesting one. We were just talking about referability, advocacy, and the like. And I said, why don't you share with me one of your success stories, leveraging the resources and the practices that we talk about in the advisor playbook. And he said, Chris, I got to tell one to you. He said, an accountant that we work with, who's not a client, by the way, and that's kind of another story, but very much respects the advisor's business, had a client, the CPA did, that he asked if she would visit with this investment advisor. And the financial advisor says, I'd be happy to visit with her. So the accountant sets up the meeting, calls this lady, and this is how the call started. She says, listen, I understand Mr. Brown, the CPA, suggested that we talk, but before we get started, this is what she says, before we get started, I don't really have a need for an investment advisor. That's kind of not where we're at right now. But the CPA suggested we talk, so we're having this call. And so now the financial advisor is like, hey, great, nice lead, Mr. CPA. If we could get the ones that kind of want me, would be nice. But he wasn't focused on those that wanted him. That's one of these characteristics of these that put that distance between them when the client came, was he's focused on those that need him. And so he wanted to find out, this is what he says to her after she says, I don't need an investment advisor. He says, fair enough. He says, why don't you share with me your situation and see if I might be able to direct you to someone who maybe can help. She says, well, my husband just resigned from his job where he's a partner of a law firm. And at this law firm, he was unable, because of a health condition that he didn't want anyone to know about, found himself forgetting things and unable to perform at the level that he had become accustomed to, and didn't want the partners to say something to him first. So he went ahead and put out a letter of resignation. And his wife was just telling the advisor, like, I had no idea he was going to resign. I understand why he wanted to. He didn't want to be embarrassed for what was to come down the road. But we can't afford this. We hadn't planned for this. We have credit card debt. We've set aside some money, but not enough that I believe we can live the way we want to live. And the financial advisor says, hold on a second. Did he already send this letter to the partners of the law firm? She said, yes. He goes, immediately rescind the letter as quick as you can. She's like, what? He goes, this is a situation where this is a disability that has occurred. and you need to treat it as such. Now, because he already sent the letter, this financial advisor worked with that partnership to rescind the letter, refile it as a disability, worked with the insurance company, and get this, I don't need an investment advisor. It went from that to 5 months later, a check for $2 million for this lady and her husband. And the kicker, tax-free. So it's not about who wants you, it's who needs you. And the very best are identifying and able to find where they're needed, and then able to communicate in such a way that those people will embrace that professionalism. So I love, and for every financial advisor listening in, it gives me goosebumps wearing a long sleeve shirt, but you can't say, I love being able to tell those types of stories, because without you, the financial professional, folks like that go destitute. I mean, it really would have been a different scenario. And there's nothing like being able to have that kind of an impact. So it's stories like that you hear as well that make me realize that the last 18 months has been more revealing than anything.
Okay, that story had the exact same physiological impact on me just now as it did the first time. And I mean, what it confirms is, and I'm sure that advisor is thinking, wow, this is a fulfilling role I play. I don't have to do this. I get to do this. I know you're a big fan of Jim Rohn, and he always says that, and I'll just paraphrase on the context of advice, there are examples and warnings that come from either taking or ignoring advice and valuing advice. And what's interesting about this is, as a fee-for-service professional, so somebody who thinks for a living, what you're exceptionally good at is helping a financial professional capture an episode like that and turn it into an intellectual property that can be invested into other relationships. So it's not just about, okay, I've got the goods, I've got the technical ability, I'm really good at what I do. Let me share something with you that you can relate to that would probably have the same impact on a client that it had on you and I. So I know you've got this packaged in a format and a best practice. Do you want to share how somebody can capture a story and invest it into other relationships?
Sure. And this was a result of that packaging. And that's how that advisor shared the story with me, was a result of something that was adapted from a good friend of ours who wrote a book called How to Get Your Competition Fired. His name was Randy Schwantz. And he shared this with me, and I've tweaked it a little bit to our industry. And I've used it with very good results among elite advisors, giving a framework for exactly how do I tell an effective story that communicates certain things. What do we want to communicate? We want to communicate that we have capacity. We want to communicate that we're growing. We want to communicate that we have services and solutions that they're not aware of. We want to communicate what the results are by having that professional advice and putting it into practice. We want to answer the questions that they don't even know they should be asking. And here's how it starts. SONAR. That's the acronym. SONAR.